Good day to all the people of the internet watching here today. I wanted to talk about something that's already gotten 2 people to delete me on my Facebook. I'm assuming many more will to follow. So let's discuss it here, can we? So the latest mass shooting in Orlando has everybody up in arms with their own opinions on what's going on, so I just wanted to share mine as well. And I wanted to provide maybe an example of a perception that isn't exactly buying into this mass hysteria and that all Muslims are evil and terrorism only comes from people with brown skin, when it's pretty clear that the terrorists are homegrown and they're part of the elite and they, watch over us. That's the kind of terror we're talking about in this video. So I just wanted to bring up a couple facts that aren't often talked about in mainstream media. Ever since 9/11, there have been 508 terror attacks, but ironically, 243 of them directly involved an FBI informant. Now, I didn't really know exactly what that meant, but an FBI informant is basically somebody that is being used via the government agency who's very susceptible to being bullied. So they have a shady past that they want weathered, or they have really dire circumstances in there now where they're really dependent on a need for money, stuff like that. Basically people who are really easily convinced to do something. So you have these people, and then you have something called a target, which all of this stuff is stuff I'm learning, but it's very interesting because it seems to be able to fit into almost any terror attack we've had or talked about in the last decade. So a target would be a person that the FBI agency has sought out, who is kind of backed into a corner. They have a mental illness, maybe they're homeless, maybe they don't have a good support system, they're a teenager, youth, all of that stuff comes into play. Basically, you at your most vulnerable would be a person that would be highlighted by this group to then have an informant follow them and basically instigate the idea of committing a terrorist act. Now, I know this sounds heinous, you sitting there thinking, how in the world could somebody think that our own government could be conspiring against its own people in such a heinous way? But honestly, when you take into account all the factual information that is often covered up by mainstream media, it starts to just fall into place. I mean, seriously, did you know the FBI in this Orlando case had met with the lone gunman or lone shooter at least 3 times prior to this incident happening? Don't you think that's a little fishy? Don't you think it's a little fishy that this sole gunman idea, his father is like a really prominent presidential figure in Afghanistan? Kind of interesting. I think our government would know a little bit about this information. Some other stuff I found that was really interesting that I wanted to share with you, and I get it if you already turned this video off. This is gonna be a fucked up video because I think we live in a fucked up time, and I think it's goddamn time we all wake up to the fact we're being lied to. We're being lied to. So let's talk about it, shall we? So we all know that the war on terror is fake. Right? Can we all agree? Because you can't defeat terror. Terror's not an enemy. Terror's not a person. It's a thing. You can't defeat it. We're living in terror. We're living in fear. And Jesse Jackson used to say, keep hope alive. It's actually the reverse going on right now. It's the elite in this country saying, keep fear alive. And that's the war on terror. Terror being indoctrinated into your life every day. The moment you wake up and you turn on your news or you open your newspaper or you're riding your commute into work, whatever, you're going to read something about terror. Some mass shooting, some lone gunman, some bombing. It's constant. It's constant. There's a war on consciousness, and it's to keep you in fear and hate. And the moment you realize that, a cool thing starts to happen, because I'm experiencing it myself. You kind of remove yourself from that. You take yourself out of mainstream media, get off Facebook, get off Twitter, take yourself out of any situation where you're being surrounded and bombarded with advertisements of fear. Because honestly, you start to take control back of your mind. And once you're able to control your thoughts, you're able to have them come out of you in a more coherent way. You can describe your thoughts better, because if you take a step back and look at all these people who are caught in the fear game, you see they don't have clarity. It's not a stream of consciousness, it's a stream of unconscious lies. And that's all that we're perpetuating when we feed the system of mainstream media and government policy. We need to question everything. We need to demand independent investigations into bureaus like the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. All of these organizations need to be investigated. And it's scary that just being a citizen under global America makes you feel like you're going to be spied upon just having that idea that some organization in charge of the masses should have an overseer that isn't paid by the organization. Independent investigators are super important, and they fall to the wayside in this country. It's really sad, because I think we used to be really good at that stuff, and we were just dumbed down. Not your fault, not mine, collectively ours. And we need to take responsibility and accountability for that. So I was really troubled when I learned that a former FBI squad supervisor, his name is Richard Worm, but I'm going to call him a dickworm for this little piece, because that's exactly what he is. Because he described Kosovo native but American citizen, Sami Asmakak. Okay, this guy, this Kosovoan, was an American citizen, I believe. I don't know much about him, but look into it. It's a really interesting story. But in 2012, he was arrested, and then in 2014, he was convicted of this terror plot. I believe it was also in Florida, weirdly. But it's really weird when you start to look at the information involved, because then you start to find out that after him being taken into custody, it was discovered that the FBI provided the weapons for his YouTube video with the propaganda inciting that he was, I'm not sure if it was pro-ISIS or whatever, but it was pro-Islamic views that the FBI is absolutely terrified of for some reason, because God forbid some people around the world identify in the safety of a religion, and that's fine. Islam is not a bad religion, and I don't know why people with white skin who live in America think it is. It's not bad. Pakistan isn't bad. They're good. They're good people. And I'm not doing that to relate. I'm saying we have such a view in this country of what is good and what is bad. We think Muslims are bad, but that's silly. That half the world is Muslim faith. Stop it. We have very sane, smart, intelligent, free-thinking Muslims doing amazing things around this world. Islam, not bad. Nothing bad about it. Same with Christianity, same with Catholicism. It's the people who do bad things with these, because these are just ideas, and they're ideas based in some form of love. Love for one another, love for a higher being. That's all this is, okay? This isn't a religious war at all. It's not. It's a war inciting fear among religions. That's all this is, okay? So follow me. Let's talk more. The FBI also paid for an informant to follow Asmakak. I can't say his name, but no disrespect. Also, the FBI provided and assembled the bomb that he was to be using, and the FBI paid for his transport to make sure he was going to be in the right location. He was then picked up, and he's serving 40 years in prison. It's under appeal. This is serious. This is what they do, and the same thing happened with Orlando. The same thing happened with Sandy Hook. All of these are false flags. And we need to understand, false flag, I'm still learning. I don't quite get if that means the thing never happened, or if it means the thing happened, but it was being perpetrated by people that aren't being given to us, the information's being withheld. I think false flag means an umbrella of idea. So I don't want anybody clapping back with, if you're trying to tell me the shooting didn't actually happen, because I'm not saying that. I believe that about Sandy Hook because all of those parents were paid off, and it's really sketchy. But this Orlando one, I'm not sure what happened, but I do not buy the official story that's flowing on mainstream media. One of the main reasons is because one of the first interviews to come out of a Orlando-based news affiliate had a man stating that there was at least a second, if not third gunman, and that somebody was holding the door shut, telling them to stay in and stop trying to get out. This person holding the door was a reason that many, many more victims fell prey to the bullets. I mean, is that something we want to overlook? We want to overlook facts so we can buy the government's official story? I mean, give me a fucking break. This just comes into play that it's good timing for Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now she can be staunch against NRA. She has all these fucking pedestals she can walk in on and say, I am above this, I will end terrorism. But really, she works for the organization that's heading it. And honestly, a vote for Hillary Clinton is a vote to keep this alive and thriving. Now, do not hear those as words to boast for Trump. I am saying that both of these leading politicians right now are frauds. They are both frauds. How anybody could avert attention from Bernie Sanders, who is absolutely pro the people, keeping us safe, and investigating government agencies and banks that help fund and perpetrate this kind of violence amongst people on this soil. It's baffling. It's baffling that Americans think they're smart. It's funny to me. This is why I argue on Facebook. Everybody wants to pretend that we live in this amazing country and our government has our best interest, but nowhere around the world can you find that anywhere else, because America, land of the free, home of the brave, we're the best. But it's fake. It's fake. It's fake as shit. And in some years, we're going to look back and realize that. Everywhere else around the world looks at America and realizes we're fake. We're just sheep following a stupid leader who doesn't know shit about shit. I don't care if you're talking Obama, Hillary Clinton, Trump, Bill Clinton. They're all fucking dumb. All of them. Republican, Democrat. They're puppets for the elite. We've talked about this many times. But to not go too far off topic, I want to get you back to some of this information. It's fascinating. I also found this man, Trevor Aronson. He's the author of this book, The Terror Factory, which I think is quite a cool name for a book talking about its own country and government. That's kind of clever. But in it, he says that most Islamic terror plots since September 11th of 2001 have actually had FBI terror plot involvement, and it's sold to a hopeless patsy such as a homeless man or woman, a retarded teenager, or someone who doesn't have the means for survival within society, and it's sold to them by a con artist. This is an author giving you a really direct view into somebody questioning their government. He's basically saying somebody from the FBI targets somebody in a bad situation, forces them into a worse situation by offering them money for temporary relief, or maybe to get them out of a situation because they have a record, or because they're in something that could cost them or a loved one their life. I mean, honestly, you have to look at this. Our government has a lot of control over expunging records or making sure you're wealthy the rest of your life. I mean, people are bought and paid for. Nobody has morals, so get used to this world. But it's funny because you start to realize, like, every terroristic attempt in the past decade, it's often been thwarted because the Muslim terrorists were too stupid to even tie a shoelace, or it was perpetuated by the most insanely genius Muslim that has ever walked Earth. It's insanity how it goes from one extreme to another. Like, it's crazy. My notes. It's crazy to me how we as Americans don't see that. And it's funny because it's also stated that Americans expect instant solutions, and when we are willing to just believe whatever our government says to us to get an easy answer is when we lost America. And that's true. We're just taking the Band-Aid. We take the Band-Aid that the government offers us with the petty story full of lies and holes, instead of choosing to dig deep and open the wound up again, because we don't want to extend the pain and the hurt and the suffering, except we do it all the time by lying to ourselves and then never knowing the truth. We still don't know the truth on 9/11, and that breaks my heart every day. For all those people who lost their lives on the plane and the buildings, all of it, it was out of lies and deceit, and still, 15 years later, we don't know why. We don't get it. We don't know. And it's sad. Terrorism is not understood. We don't get what it is. You can't defeat a war on terror. I said this before, but what is it to you? What's terror to you? Wouldn't terror be a government perpetuating violent crimes amongst its people? Isn't that terrorism? I mean, seriously, waging wars amongst people for various insecurities within ourselves. That's what the war on terror is. And honestly, it's only allowing a few to get rich. If we trace the money back from all of these terrorist activities, you'd see who's getting wealthy off of them. It's the people who profit on war. It's the people who profit on fossil fuels and like Lockheed Skunk Works and Boeing, like all these people designing things that are necessary for war. Because if peace reigned, first of all, we wouldn't have money because nobody would need wealth. Peace would be reigning. You would share, like equality and justice would be rampant, and people thriving for money would Darwinism themselves. They would go extinct. Nobody would want to socialize with them. They'd bury themselves underground. It'd be sad for them, but it'd be great for us. And that's one thing I think people don't quite understand. You don't have to buy into the war on terror because it's not real. I know it's probably scary to say that at first because you're coerced into believing that it is. It isn't. People following Islam, people following Muslim faith, they want peace. They think in their minds, in their perspective, they're the good guys. They're trying to perpetuate peace and emit it so that the whole world can live in harmony. I don't care if that is your view or not of a religion, but it is where it's based. It's where all humanity is based. Christians and Catholics, all the same, Jewish people. You start at a place of love with that religion. It comes from a place of wanting answers to something you can't figure out, and that's a beautiful thing. But when you turn it into something deceitful and full of carnage and rage, that's when you're choosing to use religion as a shield for just your own ignorance and your own inability to grow and expand your consciousness. You're a toddler in your mind, and it's really sad to watch, like these people fighting for power vis-a-vis war and extradition of free-thinking people. Like, these are all people scared of their own shadow, and that's sad, but it's the truth that we live in. Another really cool fact that people commenting on YouTube videos brought up was taking the photo of the nightclub from Google Maps and showing that this bar only had one exit. Okay, one exit. Like, is that even up to fire code? And there were absolutely no HD security cameras around the perimeter. So not in gas stations or buildings nearby, across parking lots, nothing. Any security camera that existed is like shot with a toaster in 240, okay? And we all know we don't watch video on 240. Which makes a lot of people question, well, what the hell does that mean? Because was this place scouted beforehand? Was this a place of interest? Because a lot could be gotten away with. You wouldn't exactly get the whole story. And the last thing I just wanted to bring up that was put into comments on another video by somebody who I thought was insanely brave and clever was, if 50 people truly died in this horrific mass shooting, if that truly did happen, then this is a government organized slaughter, and its intent is to create chaos. And if you choose not to believe that, you are the problem. You are the sheep being herded to slaughter, and that is the truth. You don't have to be scared of the words I just said. You have to know that they're real. And the more you pay attention to those facts all around you that stem from all of these terrorist activities, you need to start seeing patterns emerge. Because you're not going to figure out the story if you don't. You're not going to put the pieces together when you go by Megyn Kelly's version of Fox News propaganda. It's bullshit. It's straight up bullshit, and I would argue with anyone who believes otherwise. Don't be mad at any other person's skin color, religion, or religious beliefs, or sexual orientation. That's not what this is about. This is a war on the people to take away your rights and your liberties, and that's all this is. It's to put you in fear, to perpetuate fear. Just realize that. Take care of yourself, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Comment below. Peace.